So when someone like Anna says like Hasan is a slave to his audience, or Destiny used to say this all the time too, Epsteiny, Sex Pestiny, Hasan is audience captured. Hasan is audience captured. When they say stuff like this, it's actually projection. It's no different than saying you're virtue signaling, right? You're coming to the conclusion that the values that I'm espousing are virtuous, but I simply cannot truly mean it. I must be doing it for some cynical reason. Because if you were in that similar predicament, you'd be doing it for a cynical reason. As a matter of fact, maybe you are actually advocating for the things that you're advocating for some cynical reason right now. That's all this is. Okay? And I think for a lot of people, it truly stems from personal vendettas. It stems from personal insecurities. And I think people, maybe I'm like a little too autistic. Okay? But for me, I care about your output more than the personal back and forth that we have. There are plenty of content creators who have treated me not so great. And I'm always going to be gracious until it gets to a point where they're just like so overtly hostile that they are deliberately playing the role. Ethan isn't being cynical though. He does think you're racist, but he's also very stupid. Okay. That's not, I wasn't even necessarily talking about Ethan here, but that's funny that you said that. Okay. The point I was trying to make is maybe it's the autism in me, but I don't necessarily care about like envy as much as I, do I feel envious? Sure. Okay. From time to time, certainly. Okay. Did you watch the full video and fire Frogan yet? First of all, this is the operating, like this is the brain operation that the smartest fans have. What do you mean fire Frogan? From what? Frogan is her own person. She's a content creator on her own. Yes, she mods in this community as well. But like, what do you mean fire Frogan? No. And the answer is fucking no. Over what? Hummus? Shut the fuck up. Okay. Oh my God, I can't believe she wanted to make a 9/11 cake. Yeah, let me act like that is the most scary thing I've ever said from a guy who literally said he wanted to bomb the NRA headquarters or said that Ben Shapiro would be the first to go to the Holocaust camps. I can't believe Frogan made a edgy joke about 9/11. Oh no. Oh, she must be a terrorist. I guess you can only make edgy jokes if you're not a hijabi woman, you know? Like, what are we doing? Where is the consistency, guys? Come on. Also, it's so stupid. Envy and jealousy are different. Anyway, my point was that for me, I think a lot of people that end up trying to make these arguments about how like Hasan is bad for politics and he's radicalizing his audience, yada yada yada. I think a lot of those people actually unironically are coming at this argument from a place of not like a political disagreement, but they're coming at this argument from a place where they have disagreements over something else, maybe jealousy, maybe envy, maybe anger, right? Or resentment over something. But then they try to turn this into a political disagreement because everyone wants to moralize their consumption. Okay? Everyone wants to moralize their consumption. Everyone wants to moralize their call out. They can't just be like, I hate this guy. His vibes are off. Okay? Or they can't simply say, I hate this guy because he's successful and I'm not, and we're in the same field, right? Like, oh, I don't like that, you know, he left the Young Turks and was able to reach levels of success on his own. It's not about that, right? It's not about that. It's actually because that person is like audience captured, and that's the reason why he's advocating for the things that he's advocating for. He must not simply believe the things that he's saying. Like, all of this stuff is just personal perspectives masquerading as a political disagreement. And as long as there is no real massive political disagreement, I will usually just like let it slide. I don't give a shit. Okay? You also hate your audience to the core? No, I love my audience. I love my community. My community has kept me alive, okay? If I didn't love my audience and my community, I wouldn't be fucking streaming at 5 a.m. every morning. You also hate your audience to the core? Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. That stuff is ridiculous. Obviously. There are certainly times when I'm very annoyed with members of my community. You know what I mean? And it's understandable. This is a back and forth dialogue that takes place. There's a back and forth dialogue that takes place for 8 hours every day on contentious topics. Clearly, that presents hostility, that creates hostility, and happens. Anyway, let's get back to Donald Trump.
Weapons. Well, there's a short-term freeze with Mexico, as you know, and with Canada. But they've agreed to be very, very strong on the border, stronger than they ever were by far, by a factor of about 30.
It's very funny saying you're afraid of people approaching IRL, because I was reminded of the people that approached you at the TwitchCon and wanted you to fight a certain neo-Nazi. You had no problem being completely confrontational, calling them out. Yeah.
And in addition to that, as you can see, we've been strong because we've had numbers like you've never seen before. I mean, the border is now closed, really closed. And with that being said, we're letting good people come through, and we want good people to come into our country. But the border is closed.
In your talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, do you intend to press him about how many deaths there have been amongst Palestinians? Are you concerned about that death?
I talk about that too. You know, both sides mean a lot. I talk about that. I talk about the other side. I talk about everything.
What's your main message to him today during your meeting?
Well, I'm here to listen. He's here to see me, and I'm here to listen. So.
Will you continue to press?
We're doing bodies and spaces. We're doing bodies and spaces. Benjamin Beebe's coming in. And he's gonna do standpoint theory. I'm here to sit my white ass down and listen.
At the right time, I'll give him my message.
Mr. President, will you continue to press for this idea?
Take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice and make it habitable and enjoyable and make it a home.
They don't want to leave, though. Palestinians say they don't want to leave.
I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. If we could find the right piece of land or numerous pieces of land and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure. I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza, which has had just decades and decades of death.
Where would those pieces places of land be?
Well,
if
they
those
could
Arab
be in
countries
Jordan,
don't want
and they
to
could be in Egypt, and they could be in other places.
Your point confused the fuck out of me. Are you trying to separate people's moral image away from their politics? What point are you trying to prove? Like, am I missing something? Don't morals also affect people's political reasoning and their ability to change things? Yes. I never said I separate people's morals. What? No, I'm simply saying that a lot of people's disagreements online, no matter how hard they try to make it seem like it's a genuine political disagreement, actually stems from petty jealousy, pure jealousy, hatred, spite. It has nothing to do with the politics. Okay? Most content creators, myself included, have a decent amount of narcissism in them, and no matter how hard they try to shelter that, that is what motivates them. Okay? I don't think I agree. Okay, well, you're not a fucking content creator, big dog. Sorry. I know these people personally, okay? You know, you don't have to agree with me on it, but I'm telling you from my own personal experience, a lot of people act like they have these massively consequential disagreements, and many of them, I'm not even saying that there is nothing there, that their political disagreements aren't significant. There are definitely instances where you can have political disagreements. You're anti-Semitic. Okay, brother, come on. Let's be serious. I think it's narcissistic most of the time. It's just like a narcissistic person who feels slighted and is desperately looking for an out, desperately looking for someone to point the finger of blame at. And if they were to just be like, I don't like this person because, I don't know, he gets, I don't like this person because he gets a lot of praise from a sector like news media and political figures that I actually hope and wish would give me the praise. If you said that out loud, people would look at you and go, the fuck? That's a stupid way to operate. You know, why should I give a shit that like other political figures that you care about don't actually respect you? You know what I mean? That would be an insanely stupid thing to say out loud and admit. So they just go, oh, we have serious political disagreements, and actually my enemy is ontologically evil, and that's what is the real issue here. Like, they have to masquerade as though there is a real, serious, unexamined, impossible to contend with political disagreement here, and it's not just like a narcissistic crash out. That's it. It's marketing. Now let's get back to the dude who is ruining everyone's lives and also openly talking about doing mass population transfer, ethnic transfer. Okay? Donald Trump.
More than two, more than one, but you could have more than two. And you'd have people living in a place that could be very beautiful and safe and nice. Gaza's been a disaster for decades.
Would the U.S. pay for that?
I don't think the UN would pay, but I think there's plenty of people that would in the area. They have a lot of like to see it. I know that Saudi Arabia wants to see peace. I can see that. And many of the countries there, as far as I'm concerned, they all want peace. I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think Iran would like to see peace too. They've had enough. Don't you think they've had enough?
But the leaders of Egypt and Jordan have said bluntly they have no interest in doing this.
Well, they may have said that, but a lot of people said things to me. They said they wouldn't take anybody back in Venezuela, and right now they're flying them right back into Venezuela. And a lot of people, and they're doing the right thing in Venezuela. The Panama Canal is an active discussion right now. They said things about that. And virtually everything that's been said has been incorrectly stated based on the result.
Doesn't that amount to forcibly displace, or wouldn't that amount to forcibly displacing those people from Gaza?
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to Gaza, they have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have
That's a good point. Trump on LA. It looks like a demolition site. These people want to rebuild today. Trump on Gaza. It looks like a demolition site. These people need to go somewhere else. Yeah. We can't rebuild. It's a demolition site and we can't rebuild. So they just have to go somewhere else. Please. Please go somewhere else. Come on. That would be really beneficial. Yeah.
Have no alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. There's shooting all over the place. There's bombing all over the place on both sides. Now, I would think if they had an option of moving to either in a large group or various smaller groups and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do it. They have no, when you say about the Gaza Strip, they don't have an option.
To be clear, you're saying they'd be thrilled.
It's very dangerous.
They'd be thrilled to leave Gaza.
Oh, I think they'd love to leave Gaza if they had an option. Right now, they don't have an option. What are they going to do? They have to go back to Gaza. But what is Gaza? There's practically not a building standing. And they're very dangerous. Those buildings are shifting and they're falling down all over the place. And there's gunfire all over.
While the war was ongoing, rather than now when there's a ceasefire?
Which is what you're talking about.
When it was more dangerous when there were strikes overhead than now.
Well, the strikes could start tomorrow. There's not a lot.
Yeah, once again, it's just like the strikes, it could start at any moment. It could start tomorrow. Like as though this is a natural disaster. It's just a naturally occurring phenomena. And not like an apartheid state doing an ethnic cleansing with American weapons and American political cover, and the war criminal in charge of said ethnic cleansing campaign you are meeting with today, like right now as we speak.
You occupy or reoccupy, and you ethnically cleanse areas from the so-called, especially Area C. Because as Netanyahu and Trump talk in Washington, I think most people now understand that the end game is that there would be some form of an American recognition of Israeli annexations in Area C. And I think what Israel is doing today, displacing the Palestinians in order to cement that horrific plan, so-called deal of the century. Right from the outset of that so-called deal of the century, its logic, right? And I think it's, as I said, it's still an American plan or a Trump White House plan. Is very simple. They're trying to find a third way to.
Is this part of the deal Trump did with Bibi for the pause on the war? That was my speculation. That is what I warned you against initially, that this ceasefire would happen, okay, and that they most likely were going to use as an opportunity to re-up, rearm, and then go directly into the West Bank. I said time and time again that this is most likely what the Trump administration's desires are. And I think that that is what's unfolding currently.
So-called resolve the Israel-Palestine.
The part of this process that is frustrating to me most is that Donald Trump does have the capacity to end it, just like Joe Biden did. All it would take for them is to simply say, cut it out. That's it. That's it. And Donald Trump actually did say, cut it out. And Israel did. Donald Trump doesn't have to make additional deals on the side for Israel to cut it out, by the way, just so you understand. He doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, cut it out and then we'll let you cut it out, and then we'll let you go into the West Bank. And then Bibi is like, okay, that's the only reason why I'll concede. Like, they don't make the rules here. Okay, they don't make the rules here. We do. We set the standard. We make the rules.
Palestine issue without a two-state solution, hence Palestinian citizenship in a sovereign, independent Palestinian state, nor a one-state solution.
And Trump is now live with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Maybe they don't. We're dealing with a very complex group of people, situation and people. We have the right man. We have the right leader of Israel. He's done a great job, and we've been friends for a long time. And we do a great job also. And I think we have a combination that's very unbeatable, actually.
Can I ask, what would happen, Mr. President? What would happen, Mr. President? What would happen if you hear?
Oh my God, look at him. He's so fucking happy.
Wait a minute. Wait. Where is that person? Where's that person coming from? Come on, go.
Mr.
You go.
President, what would happen if you'll hear from the Israeli side today that they're not willing to go through with the deal to get all the hostages back home and finish the war?
We'll see what happens. Whatever happens, we'll be prepared to handle the situation.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state?
Mr. President.
No.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state?
No, they're not. No.
Are they demanding a path towards a Palestinian state or any other recognition
Everybody's
of that
demanding one thing. You know what it is? Peace. We want peace. We want people to stop being killed. But everybody's demanding one thing. Very simple, peace. And he wants peace also.
Mr. President, do you think it's politically possible in Israel to get this deal done until the end?
To get the deal done?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, is it politically
Why wouldn't a deal get
possible?
done? A deal can get done. We'll see what happens. We're dealing with very complicated people. But a deal can absolutely get done.
President
Israeli strike on Iran.
We'll see what happens.
President Trump, I want from Prime Minister Netanyahu. We've heard Joe Biden and Donald Trump take credit for the hostage and ceasefire deal. Who do you think deserves more credit?
I think President Trump added great force and powerful leadership to this effort. I appreciate it. He sent a very good emissary. He's helped it along. And, you know, I'll just tell you, I'm happy that they're here. And I'm sure the president is happy that they're here. And I would think that's about enough.
President Trump, Prime Minister, what about Elizabeth Surkov, the Israeli hostage held in Iraq?
What about the Israeli press taking a press conference in Israel and not in Washington?
We would love to take a press conference to interview Prime Minister Netanyahu. A few more questions. Prime Minister Netanyahu, do you support going forward with this deal and getting all the hostages out?
I support getting all the hostages out and meeting all our war goals that include destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and making sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
Are you willing?
All three.
Are you willing
And
to
those
agree? Are you willing
things
to
go
agree?
together?
Are you willing
Can you
to agree
promise to the
Trump's
families
vision
that you
to
do
bring all the
everything to get the hostages out?
I think that I should talk to President
One at a
Trump,
time. So
okay?
I'll ask, do you agree with Trump's vision of getting all the hostages back home, even if it means to end the war?
Well, I'm not sure that you articulated correctly what the president's vision is. You can ask, he can speak for himself. He does that very, very well. I have my own views, 3 goals, not 1, not 2, 3 goals, and I will meet all 3 goals. I think the president can help enormously. He brings fresh thinking.
Any address to the
Fresh
fact
thinking.
that terrorists who murdered hundreds of people were listed their home as the part of the deal?
It's a horrible thing. We can't forget it. I'll never forget it, and you can't forget it.
They got the right
And
wing.
Some people want to put it out of their memory, but we're not going to ever let that happen.
Why are you
It was a
releasing the
horrible day,
terrorists?
October 7th. That was a horrible period of time, and a lot of people like to pretend it didn't happen. It happened. It's a big group of people that like to pretend it didn't happen, like the Holocaust didn't happen. Same mindset. And no, we're going to get this thing wrapped up, and we're going to get it done. We're also dealing, I think, very successfully with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to hopefully get that one done at some point in the not too distant future. That's a complex problem also, but we solve problems. When I left, we had no problem. There was no Ukraine and Russia fighting. There was no October 7th, there was nothing, and some very poor leadership led to a lot of problems and a lot of death. And it's a shame, but we'll put it out. We'll put out the fires. We have a lot of fires, but we'll put them out.
Mr. President, why do you still support a Palestinian state like the peace plan you presented in January 2020? Is this plan still on the table?
Well, a lot of plans change with time, and a lot of death has occurred since I left and now came back. This death occurred not while I was here, but while somebody else was here. It shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have allowed it to happen. It would have never happened, and that includes Russia, Ukraine would have never happened. Not even a little bit, not even a chance. But now we are faced with a situation that's different, in some ways better and in some ways worse. But we're faced with a very complex and difficult situation, but we'll solve the problem.
Mr. President, refugees get from Gaza, out of Gaza, if not Jordan, Egypt, what other countries you think might accept Palestinians from Gaza?
Well, I think Jordan and Egypt will. I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will. But I think other countries will accept also. I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, it's all, I mean, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another
the guy sitting next to you did it.
Location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza. And right now you have in Gaza a very dangerous situation in terms of explosives all over the place, in terms of tunnels that nobody knows who's in the tunnel. The whole thing is a mess. And I think that if we can resettle, and I believe we can do it in areas where the leaders currently say no. I mean, I've been saying that with Mexico, having to do with the border and all of the things, and you saw what happened, 10,000 soldiers, and they're going to do a good job. I really believe that, and I believe Canada is going to do a good job also. They said the same thing, and then they did something much different than what you were hearing. This is a very, very difficult situation, but we're going to get it solved. I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living. And the only reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. What's the alternative? Go where? There's no other alternative. If they had an alternative, they'd much rather not go back to Gaza and live in a beautiful alternative that's safe.
Mr. President,
Peter?
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth.
That's, I can't believe a journalist said that. I mean, it's true.
I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there. So if we can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people, very rich nations, and they're willing to supply it. If we
It's
can build
crazy.
something for them and
We're just talking about,
countries, and it could be
like,
Jordan,
we're
it could
talking about
be Egypt,
Palestinians
it
like
could
they're
be
just
other
not
countries.
human, you know? They
Four or
just,
5 or 6 areas. It doesn't have to be one area, but you take certain.
we'll
areas
just
and
slap
you
them into
build
an ugly ass
really good
Trump building
quality housing, like a
in the
beautiful
Sinai Peninsula.
town, like someplace where they can live and not die, because Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. It's happened over and over again, and it's going to happen again as sure as you're standing there, Peter. So I hope that we could do something where they wouldn't want to go back. Who would want to go back? They've experienced nothing but death and destruction.
What will you do if Egypt and Jordan tell you no? What will you do then?
Well, I don't think they're going to tell me no.
Mr. President,
I don't think they're going to tell me.
What will you do if
I think they're going to tell Biden no, and I think they're going to tell Other people, no. I
So
don't
you think
they'll-
it will happen at the end?
I think there's a good chance, yeah.
How
I'd like to see
many
it happen.
people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking
All of the
about
guys.
probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
Mr. President, do you support building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next years?
Say it.
Building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next year. Do you support this idea?
I don't see it happening. It's too dangerous for people. Nobody can go there. It's too dangerous. Nobody wants to be there. Warriors don't want to be there. Soldiers don't want to be there.
They're like, no, nobody, not even, no settlements. We're just going to keep that space empty.
It's going to happen. It'll only be death. The best way to do it is you go out and you get beautiful, open areas with the sunlight coming through. And
No,
you
that's
build
not what I meant.
something nice.
Building Israeli
They are not
settlements
gonna
back
wanna-
in Gaza.
They are not going to want to go back to Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, what is your message to the families of the hostages that look at this deal, that are worried that this deal won't go through? What do you say to them at this moment?
Same message I said from the beginning of the war. We'll get them out, get them back. We got over 70%, close to 75% of the people who everybody believed will not get out. We got them in successive deals, and most recently with the help of President Trump. We're not going to give up on any of them, and we're not going to give up on our other war aims. Hamas is not going to be in Gaza, and we're going to get everyone back.
And you would not have...
Prime Minister, how optimistic are you about reaching phase 2 of the ceasefire? How optimistic are you about that happening?
Well, we're going to try. That's one of the reasons, one of the things we're going to talk about here. And if we, you know, when Israel and the United States work together, and President Trump and I work together, you know, the chances go up a lot. It's when we don't work together, Israel and the United States don't work together, that creates problems. When the other side sees daylight between us, and occasionally in the last few years, to put it mildly, they saw daylight, then it's more difficult. When we cooperate,
Isn't it the right
chances
time
are
to hit
good.
once and for all?
Say it.
Now that Iran is so weak, isn't it the right time to hit their nuclear facilities once and for all?
Jesus
So you say
Christ.
Iran is so weak. I appreciate you saying that. They're not weak. They're
Bro, what the hell is this guy? Journalists in the building are like, why can't we hit Iran's
You
nukes?
know, I signed a very strong proclamation.
That guy's not a journalist.
Iran was in big trouble.
That's an
when I left.
insane
They were
person,
broke.
dude.
They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. You had no problem. October 7th could have never happened. When I left, October 7th could have never happened. And frankly, Russia and Ukraine, as I said, could never have happened. They became very strong, very fast. They sold massive amounts of oil to China and everybody else who would not buy the oil when I was president, because we said, don't buy the oil. And they became very rich very quickly. But they're not weak. They're not weak. They're strong. Doesn't mean they won't be weak. But you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear
The
weapon.
Prime Minister, sorry, sir, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
But is that option is on the
Yes,
table?
please.
President Trump, is that option on the table?
You're not just talking about Jordan and Egypt.
No, could be other places too.
So in the Gulf.
There are many people that have reached out, many countries, many leaders of countries that have reached out that would like to participate in that. Doesn't have to be Jordan and Egypt, but I think it would be also them.
Mr. President, your relationship with Mr. Netanyahu knew ups and downs. How do you describe it right
No, I think it's mostly ups.
Mr. President, what about the Palestinian Authority? Should it rule Gaza because Gaza will be empty?
What?
The Palestinian Authority, can it rule Gaza? What do you think?
Well, it's had a pretty hard time, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's had a pretty bad time of it.
Mr. President, Qatar has, you've criticized them in the past as a funder of terrorism, so as the Prime Minister. Do you think they're part of the solution or part of a problem moving forward?
I think they're trying to help. Qatar
Yep.
is absolutely trying to help. I know them very well, and they're doing everything they can. Very tough situation, but they're absolutely trying to help.
Will you
Okay,
visit Israel?
thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You'll see him soon. Thank you, guys. Come on. Let's go. Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's go.
Thank you,
Let's
Chris.
go. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. You'll see him soon.
Thank you.
Demons always win, dude. Evil thrives. Yeah. Meanwhile, aside from the Palestine stuff, El Salvador offers to house violent U.S. criminals and deportees of any nationality in unprecedented deal. Seeing the future, I can't believe this is the argument that's going to be recorded as the truth. Nobody involved and nobody watching actually believe what Trump believes. Yeah. No party involved legitimately thinks that this is a good thing. And no party involved thinks that this is a humanitarian way to deal with the problem. And Donald Trump has decided that this is the best possible way to market this decision to his fan base. Great stuff.
There's not a lot left to strike. It's a demolition site. The whole place is demolished. It's unsafe. It's unsanitary. It's not a place where people want to live.
Mr. President.
Nobody's got. They have no alternative but to go back. If we gave them an alternative of living in a beautiful open place with some.
Yeah, we heard this already. Okay.
Being built between Los Angeles and San Francisco project I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, he said he's going to look into the high-speed rail situation. He's going to look into it. There's obviously a lot of mismanagement on that part too, but having said that, and there's a lot of like shitty contractors that have made a lot of money off of it, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, Berlin police will ban the Arabic language of demonstrations after dubious reports of anti-Semitic chant went around X. Some SPD politicians want to ban all demonstrations entirely. And yeah, Trump wants to probe the California high-speed rail project. Trump signs orders on Iran and withdrawing U.S. from UN, Human Rights Council, and UNRWA. I think this is another lesson that I doubt liberals will learn from, but when you actually escalate, when you actually move in one direction as the Democratic Party, the Republicans will take advantage of that situation and will absolutely push it even further, much, much further than you did. Okay, what about the norms, though? I think we're done with that. I think most people understand that it's over, right? It's
some
over.
of the worst. Billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars over budget. In fact, I read where you could take every single person that was going to go on the train and get the finest limousine service in the world and take them back and forth with limousines, and you'd have hundreds of billions of dollars left over. It is the worst thing, and we're going to start an investigation in that because it's not possible. I built for a living, and I built on time, on budget. It's impossible that something could cost that much. And now it's not even going to San Francisco, and it's not going to Los Angeles. They made it much shorter. So now it's at little places way away from San Francisco and way away from Los Angeles. No, we're going to start a big investigation on that because I've never seen anything like it. Nobody has ever.
Just name calling. Tell me how Harris would be worse than Trump. You can't. You just want to feel better about not voting, but guess what? You will never. You listen to charlatans and fucked up. Honestly, Israel should be thanking you, full stop. Bro, you helped Israel. Israel thanks leftists who didn't vote. Wait. Dude, not only did I vote, I voted and urged others to vote on camera. Okay? Approximately for 45 entire minutes. This is what I'm saying. When you get all of your news and information from fucking drama YouTubes, you're always going to be deluded, okay? Just because it corresponds to your pre-existing biases doesn't mean it's true. Do you feel embarrassed now that you know the truth? Or will you double down? This is a learning opportunity for you. This is a moment where you can go, okay, maybe I was wrong about this. Okay? Maybe I was led astray. You helped Israel. Yeah, dude. I really, really helped Israel. The notion that the Democratic Party that held all the cards, okay, unilaterally on Israel and refused to put an end to these atrocities is correct. It's not a simple suspicion. Donald Trump demonstrated that reality by forcing Benjamin Netanyahu, by way of Steve Witkoff, a fucking real estate developer, into signing off on a ceasefire. Okay? He did. He also simultaneously cut side deals, but that doesn't change the reality that he was like, all right, you're done. And guess what happened? Benjamin Netanyahu turned the dial down. Okay? All of this extra stuff that he's doing now is not the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu was on board with the ceasefire. The reason why he was on board with the ceasefire was because Donald Trump said so. That's the amount of power that the American government holds over Israel. And anyone that tries to tell you that that's not the case is lying to you. Okay? So if they had this level of power and this level of control and this level of influence over the state of Israel, okay, why didn't they use it when Israel was doing a genocide? Or, yeah, he's been saying over and over that you didn't vote and told people not to vote. Why? Because it sounds good for him and he can blame you for why Trump won. Yep, all down to you, apparently. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous because, ironically enough, if the Democratic Party had listened to some of my concerns early on in the campaign from the DNC onward, when I was fucking invited to the DNC, as a matter of fact, then they might have actually won the election. And it's ironic because the current fucking head of the DNC heard some of those concerns on CNN when I was on CNN and said, I agree with Hasan. So what the fuck are we talking about? What is, like, how can we as liberals and progressive minded people who despise Donald Trump, who despise reactionary politics, sit around and consistently shit on Republicans, understandably, okay, for living in an alternative dimension, and then demonstrate that exact same thing here on some petty drama bullshit? Like, you're literally doing the thing that you shit on the Republicans over. And you're doing it for, like, incredibly lower stakes. You're doing it over an exercise in petty internet drama geared up by your favorite content creator. Hello. Wake up. Lock in. Please.
Never seen anything like it. The worst overruns that there have ever been in the history of our country. And it wasn't even necessary. I would have said, you don't buy it. You take an airplane. It costs you $2. It costs you nothing. You take an airplane. But this got started, and if you have to, you drive. You can drive. They have hundreds of billions of dollars of cost overruns, and it's not even the same project. It's much shorter. It's way outside of San Francisco and way outside of Los Angeles. So we're going to be looking into this.
Mr. President, Bush engineers that Elon Musk has helping him are as young as 19 years old.
That's good. They're very smart, though, Peter.
I see people in random TikTok comments saying how you could have changed the outcome for the election if you would have endorsed Kamala. And I'm like, are y'all okay? Taylor Swift didn't change it. What makes you think a streamer could have? They're just looking for, this is Russiagate, okay? But in a way, it's even dumber than Russiagate, much dumber than Russiagate, where it's like a streamer could change the outcome. Make no mistake, a streamer, myself, or anyone really, could change the outcome if the Democratic Party actually listened to not just me, but voters in general, okay? I don't want Donald Trump to win. You kind of did, though. No, dude. No. You're a 48-month subscriber. If you genuinely think that I am capable of changing the outcome of an entire election, you are fucking insane. For 48 months, you have literally not learned a single damn thing in here. Okay? Oh, no, he's saying you kind of did. You did endorse. Yeah, I endorsed Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump. I want, and I said this on Pod Save America, okay? I said this on Pod Save America. I want to be regime pilled, okay? I want to be the greatest propaganda minister you've ever seen. But in order for me to be able to do that, the Democratic Party actually has to present something that is defensible. Okay? That's it. That's it. That's the point. And it wouldn't even be up to me in that position. It would not be up to me. Okay? Because if the Democratic Party actually changed its intentions and did not simply play the role of the controlled opposition party, okay? If they didn't do that, then they wouldn't need a propaganda minister such as myself because they would already be popular. It's that simple.
They're like you. They're very smart people.
Thank you. Has he...
I mean, look no further than what the Democrats are doing right now in terms of quote unquote resisting against Donald Trump. Think about that. What are they doing? Chuck Schumer the other day came out and was like, when they asked, like, what's the plan for the Democrats? What's the plan for the Democrats? In terms of like fighting back against a lot of these things that Donald Trump is doing. And they just said, we're going to sit back and watch them fail. Great plan, man.
Any of these guys?
No, I haven't seen them. They work actually out of the White House. They're smart people. Unlike what...
Yeah. The final 59-38 Senate tally to confirm Chris Wright as Energy Secretary is out. Here's who joined the Republicans in the vote. Bennett, Gallego, Heinrich, Hassan, Maggie Hassan, Hickenlooper, Lujan, Shaheen. Fetterman abstained, Graham abstained, and Hyde-Smith abstained. He kept saying I was aroused. It made me uncomfortable. Schumer's fantasy scenario is not one where he and the Dems win. It's one where they die. We're not going to go after every single issue, Senator Chuck Schumer in New York, the minority leader said in an interview. We're picking the most important fights and lying down on the train tracks on those fights.
It's a law that dictates.
Chris Murphy. You can always expect Chris Murphy to come out and pop off when it comes to
how U.S.
defending the State Department and coups and stuff. Chris, we tried to do a coup. We tried to do a soft coup in Venezuela, Murphy.
USAID spends money to make sure that we're countering Chinese influence inside Africa, to make sure that we don't lose access to critical mineral supplies, so that we're fighting back against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So Congress.
What they do in the control towers, where we need smart people. We should use some of them in the control towers where we were putting people that were actually intellectually deficient. That was one of the qualifications, is you could be intellectually deficient. No, we need smart people. Some are young and some are not young. Some are not young at all, but they found great things. Look at the list of things. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll read off a list of 15 or 20 things that they found inside of the USAID. It has to be corrupt. Nobody could approve that. They could only approve that if they were getting kickbacks. And you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
And it sounds like you're going to wind down USAID.
It sounds like it. I mean, I think so. Yeah.
So when that happens, which part of the government?
Well, I could see Marco Rubio being in charge, State Department, because they're giving money to. I mean, some of the money is well spent, I guess, but much of it is really fraudulent.
And on the education department, why nominate Linda McMahon to be the Education Department Secretary if you're going to get rid of the Education Department?
Because I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education Department. So we're ranked number 40 out of 40 schools, right? We're ranked number 1 in cost per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. And we're ranked at the bottom of the list. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools. I believe strongly in school choice. But in addition to that, I want the states to run schools. And I want Linda to put herself out of a job.
Do you think that's something you can do with an executive branch Congress?
Yeah, I would like to be able to. Look, if I could give the schools back to Iowa and Idaho and Indiana and all these places that run properly, there's many of them. I think.
Yeah, famously, red states have the highest, have the best educational outcomes, famously. You know, like the Mississippis, the Alabamas. It's great.
So if you look at the list, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, believe it or not, China's doing very well on that list. A list of well-educated, you know, where they run their school system well.
Dude, I love that they always. This is somewhat new, especially from a Republican. Consistently pointing to, like pure public, like a pure public structure. Oh, Hakeem Jeffries' 10-point plan. Okay, I'll look at it in a second. Like pointing to Norway and China or any number of different places and then being like, they're doing so well because they're not, because their educational outcomes are so much better than ours. It's true, right? And then trying to undermine public education or completely abolish it, basically, by destroying the federal structure and the funding mechanisms that already exist that are already being mismanaged through multiple decades of austerity and charter schools and privatization is insane. Okay? It's insane. And also, these countries that he's mentioning, whether it's like China, Japan, or Korea, or numerous other Asian countries specifically, when he talks about education, the reason why especially China is so good at education is because it's public and it's well funded and it's universalized. Okay? But there's also still tremendous negative qualities to that level of competitive education. I know this from my experiences growing up in Turkey, where Turkey also has a now limited but somewhat decent, at least historically somewhat decent public education structure all the way up to college. Okay? And as long as you take the national tests, both moving from 8th grade into high school, where you take the first national test that you need to take, like a standardized test, and then moving on from high school to college, you take a second standardized test. You can get into the top institutions. The best education that you can get in Turkey, at least when I was growing up, was still in public schools. They were incredibly competitive. And that competition, of course, was still burdensome for young minds. Okay? It was still very difficult. So there are issues in these countries as well. There are issues in publicly funded education systems as well. The issues are the unimaginable amount of cramming that you need to do in terms of studies. You know, you got to go to cram school, basically. You have to go to extra school after school and like specifically study for this test. There's so much stress involved in it. It's definitely not good for people's brains. especially when they're developing. They're under tremendous pressure, tremendous stress. And so there are issues in those structures as well. But the major reasons as to why they have significantly better educational outcomes than we do is because it's funded and it's public and it's not pay to win.
You have a lot of countries, not surprising names. I think that if you moved our schools...
Funding has nothing to do with how poorly educated the USA is, Law. No, brother. Funding absolutely has something to do with it. Yes, the cost per pupil is very high in the United States of America. This is true. It's a matter of where that money is going. It's a matter of the public-private partnership. And it's more so a matter of how those funds are utilized. A lot of those funds, since the 90s, by way of the Democrats and the Republicans alike, have been going to charter schools. The educational standards in the United States of America are piss poor. Schools also spend a shit ton of money on their sports programs before they spend it on actual education, having smaller classrooms, having better paid teachers with more time off, having more teachers. Or even something as simple as food. Okay? The American education structure is so fundamentally broken, especially within the public education system. It's so messed up. You're basically you're braving the elements every step of the goddamn way. And there are things that people don't even comprehend that play a major role in students not getting quality education. Things like school lunches not being free. Okay? Things like not having proper air conditioning or proper heating inside of classrooms or the sizes of classrooms. These are massively consequential issues that we don't even address or think about. Okay? That's before we get to mass shootings and shit. Why China banned homework?
You wake up at 5:30 in the morning. You scarf down breakfast on the way to school. You do 30 minutes of mandatory military-style exercise. Then at 7 o'clock sharp, the real work begins. Chinese class, then English, math, and so on. You sit still, respond when asked questions, and quietly, obediently memorize character after character, fact after fact. Officially, school ends at 5:15 p.m., but don't plan on relaxing just yet. After an hour for dinner, 2 if you're lucky, it's time for the next phase of your day, private tutoring. You sit in a room not unlike the one you just...
Yeah. Also, China literally banned, I think, this video is straight up completely false, Law. Didn't China recently ban private tutoring? I mean, you can still get it, but like a couple years ago. Yeah, they banned it 4 years ago. I guess it's not so recent. I'm so glad that Massachusetts passed the millionaires class. So every kid, including mine, can have free lunches and breakfast every day. Yeah, that's a huge problem, dude. Like when you're, especially when you're growing up and you don't have access to food, that's genuinely consequential. Heating and cooling in classrooms not being adequate is a massive consequence to your learning experience. It's stupid shit like that. People think it's all because the teachers suck or whatever. Ironically enough, everybody I think knows that people don't get into teaching in this country because they want to make money. Okay? They get into teaching because that is their passion. That I think also creates a different issue. If you're a teacher and you're constantly burdened by the stress of your finances, you're also going to offer substandard education. It's normal. You're human. No matter how passionate you are, if you're constantly stressing about your finances, that's probably going to burden you. It's probably going to play a role as well. It's death by 1,000 cuts, where the entire system is designed to make these awful substandard outcomes in terms of educational attainment in this country. Okay? Yeah, the most popular television program, award-winning television program, is quite literally about a teacher, a chemistry teacher, that gets cancer and then becomes a fucking meth kingpin in this country. Okay? Unironically, in a social democracy, that premise doesn't exist. You get that? That premise doesn't exist at all, because in any other competent social democracy or any other competent government, the teacher has an issue with cancer, and then the cancer treatment is paid for. And we're over here talking about like, oh, look at Norway and China. Their education is so much better. Why can't we do this? That's why we need to continue accelerating the public-private partnership that guts public education.
To some of these states that are really well-run states, they would be as good as Denmark and Norway and Sweden and some of the other states. And then
what's the one thing about these countries that he's presenting? Okay? What's the one thing that you can point to in these nations, man? I can't seem to place my finger on it. No, it's not that they're white. He also talked about China too. No, it's not about white versus non-white, chatters. Get the fuck out of here. No, it's not low population. He mentioned China. China breaks all of these arguments. The notion of homogeny is such a stupid one, because cultural assimilation is complete by the third generation. Okay? The notion that this is like, oh, it's because we just have too many different cultures in America is stupid. No, everybody becomes a goddamn American by the second generation, and they're completely American, hoggified by the third. Okay? Stop with this nonsense. There are 40 recognized ethnic groups in China. People think it's one culture because no American ever learns about the country. Yeah. I was going to do Teach for America and wanted to teach at a public school, but ended up being railroaded into teaching a subject I didn't want at a charter school with garbage work-life balance, no union, and super rigid rules for both teachers and students, so I ended up quitting. The incentives for people to go into teaching are so terrible that even people who want to teach are ultimately discouraged from doing so. Yep. This is awesome. They had a choice of to become a teacher or something else, ... How much is enough? Getting paid for working for 9 months out of the year, having a defined benefit, retirement, and full health care are all great perks. This guy, This guy coming in hot, dude. We're teaching. We're giving our teachers too much. That's a good take, man. You're right. Yeah. Well, don't worry. You know who are the real leeches on society? Our teachers and our fucking nurses, dude. The real leeches. The real parasites in contemporary American society. Classic.
You have the laggards, and you know who they are. I don't have to go to it, but you'd have the laggards, the same laggards that are.
Teachers are out here literally working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, in order to make ends meet. And this guy's like, you know, they're just getting paid too much. They already have good enough benefits, dude. Sweet here. Our school system is more municipal than state run. This was a change that happened in the 1990s. However, it's still all publicly funded. There are private schools, however, they're also paid for by the municipality and is allowed to make profit and not reinvested into the school. Yeah, except in Sweden, they tried to move into privatization, recognized that that actually led to worse educational attainment overall, worse educational outcomes overall, and quickly scrapped that idea. This happened, I think, like 2 decades ago at this point, or a decade ago. I remember reading about it. So Sweden is actually a very famous case study for trying to privatize it further and then realizing that that shit was a ginormous failure. It'll come back. It'll come back because that's how capital works. Capital, ironically, is a parasitic force. Capital, ironically, is, you know, does all of the things that you think teachers are doing, I guess. Okay? So even if there is a privatization initiative and it fails once, that doesn't mean people who want to seek out profit in that sector are going to stop. They're not going to be like, all right, I guess we were wrong. Oops. My bad. You know? That's not how this works at all. They're going to come back stronger, harder, and try to privatize again and again and again. As long as capital exists, they will always, as long as capitalism exists, there will always be capital owners that seek out profits in every socialized sector. That is ultimately the goal. Picking apart the government and picking apart state-funded institutions for scraps, privatizing it, and then turning it into for-profit institutions. Things like education should not be for-profit. Things like healthcare should not be for-profit. Okay? You don't have to be a socialist to recognize this. Things like housing should not be for profit. That last part is the hardest one to get people to understand, unfortunately. Okay? I think, regardless of my worldview, these are areas of agreement with the overwhelming majority of Western society. Do you understand? You see what I'm saying? Like, I have a different vision for how society must be run. Having said that, however, in the interim period, I'm perfectly capable of making marginal improvements. And those marginal improvements revolve around things like improving education. It's the exact opposite of what Trump is doing, of course, which is making education worse overall. Because he's interested in one thing and one thing only, which is to create profits for his buddies. Create avenues of profit for his buddies.
They're laggards with everything else, including crime. But even them, you'll break it into systems. As an example, if you went to New York, you go to Westchester County, you go to Dutchess County, you go to Suffolk and Long Island and Nassau and Long Island, you have maybe 6 or 7 locations, and you have New York City, which would include the 5 boroughs. And
Yeah, this is the famous Matt Damon clip.
There isn't job security, right? There's an incentive to work hard and be a better actor because you want to have a job. So why isn't it like that for teachers?
Do you think job insecurity is what makes me work hard?
Well, you have an incentive to work harder, but if there's job security,
be an actor. It's not an incentive. That's the thing. See, you take this MBA style thinking, right? It's the problem with ed policy right now. There's this intrinsically paternalistic view of problems that are much more complex than that. It's like saying a teacher is going to get lazy when they have tenure. A teacher wants to teach. I mean, why else would you take a shitty salary and really long hours and do that job unless you really love to do it?
Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
There are 10% that are bad, though. 10% of teachers are bad.
Where'd you get that number?
I don't know. 10% of people in any profession maybe should think of something else.
Well, okay, but I mean, maybe you're a shitty cameraman. I don't know.
Maybe you're a shitty cameraman. I don't know. Yeah. Guy immediately on the spot. Reason is a libertarian think tank, by the way, for those of you who don't know. But libertarian cameraman on the spot makes up a fact. Classic. Okay. And then, like, that fact is also completely irrelevant to the point of contention here. Okay. That fact is utterly irrelevant. What do you mean 10% of teachers are bad? Let's say 10% of teachers are bad. I don't even know what the standards are for bad, right? But does that mean that they should not be paid? Like, what are we talking about? Every goddamn person in this country is just like so predisposed with maxing out efficiency, not realizing that they themselves are also probably bad on certain aspects of their job. Working at a public school is so incredibly scary. I dealt with shooter threats at least once a month and had to do 4 different jobs on minimum wage. I was a substitute secretary and was therefore a nurse, a substitute detention teacher, receptionist, and crossing guard on minimum wage. There are so many things to do and you're paid barely enough to survive. Here in Denmark, we get paid to go to school when we turn 18, and the same on uni. We get even paid more money if we continue there. Like, I'm 20 and I have my own apartment, live alone, and have a cat and got no work. I can live like this because I get paid going to school. They're pooping on us. Okay, Denmark, watch out. We're coming for you anyway, okay? Don't worry. You'll get to experience that sweet, delicious American freedom soon, okay? This is unironically the American attitude, by the way, which is that they have nicer things than us because they have some degree of socialization, okay, and some social safety nets. So we must take that away by force. That's it. We're just gonna, our job here is to fuck everything up. Because we couldn't cut it. We couldn't be normal. Sounds like they need better propaganda.
I think even that would run much better than it does right now. Same thing with Los Angeles or California. You'd have Riverside. You'd break it up into 6 or 7, but most of them would be states, and you'd have one. Like in Iowa, you give it to the state of Iowa. You give it to the state of Indiana. You give it. These are really well-run states. They don't have debt. They don't have problems. They don't have any crimes, relatively speaking, to speak of. and you would have education that would be the equivalent of Norway and Denmark and various other places that are at the top of the list. So we're at the bottom of the list, and we're the most expensive. We're at the top of the list when it comes to cost per pupil. We spend more money per pupil than any other nation in the world, and yet we're rated number 40. The last ratings came out, you saw them. So they talk about 40 countries, we're rated number 40. And I say that if we did this, we would...
Dude, every problem in the United States of America is directly a consequence of like Republicans fucking it up and then Democrats not fixing it. And then going, you know what we need to do? More of the fucking up of the system. That'll fix it. It's insane. To the outsiders looking in, they're like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we have a problem. I always use gun control as an argument here because it's like the most obvious one, right? It's such a funny, if not incredibly tragic, but at this point we're in gallows humor territory, so funny situation. It's like America is the only developed nation with a massive problem, gun violence, right? Massive. It's the only developed nation that has this issue, okay? And obviously, the reason why other countries don't have this issue is because guns are not readily available for purchase, okay? They don't have more guns in circulation than they have people in other countries, okay? And every single year, mass shootings increase, school shootings increase, they get more severe, they get more violent, okay? And American leadership looks at that and goes, you know what would solve this problem? More guns. But it doesn't exist elsewhere to the same degree. So how can you look at that and be like, you know what's actually, you know what the solution to the problem is? The thing that's creating the problem and more of it. It's the same with our criminal justice system. We have an issue in the United States of America with recidivism, okay? The likelihood of a prisoner leaving prison, reoffending, and going back to prison. It's really high, okay? Now, other countries have lower rates of recidivism. Why do they have lower rates of recidivism? Well, it's because their prison structure is not focused on consistently keeping people locked up and in jail with no ways of reintegration into society. But Americans look at that problem in a country that houses a quarter of the entire planet's incarcerated population, despite only making up 4% of the entire planet's population. The United States of America, remember, houses a quarter of the entire prison population on the planet, okay? We are insanely focused on draconian measures in terms of crime and punishment. And in that country, we look to this issue of recidivism, the likelihood for prisoners to reoffend once they're released into public, and we say, you know what the solution to that is? Lowering the crime rate? More of the same problem. More cruel prisons, larger prisons, privatized prisons. And the same is happening here in education. Other countries we look to have obviously a higher degree of socialization when it comes to their public education initiatives. They have better funding and a more efficient structure. They're not interested in eking out profits whichever way they can, or at least the regulatory structure has been able to push back on the profit-seeking mentality, right, by capital owners. And then we say, you know what the solution is? More privatization, more decentralization. It makes no sense. The entirety of the American political structure revolves around looking at an issue, looking at the problems that cause that issue to exist, and then saying the only solution is more of the problems that cause that issue to exist. It is crazy. We look at a fire and we go, you know what will fix this fire? More kerosene. That's it. That's the only method we have. And it's so insane.
We would go 20, 30 notches up. We could do great. And we would have some of the best districts in the world.
But are you looking to do?
I work in public transit advocacy. And 90% of the arguments I hear against it are, we can't invest more in public transport because the current system is shit. Read underfunded. Exactly. Oh, goddamn Ronald Reagan, burning in hell right now, okay? Starving the fucking beast, baby. It's funny because we do this to other countries by force through the IMF and World Bank, right? We give them loans that have horrible conditions with massive rates of interest. And then when we demand a return on that investment, we demand it by way of austerity. Here in the United States, we don't have the World Bank or the IMF. We just do it to ourselves. It's crazy. It's crazy. Socialists, classic socialists blaming everything on Reagan. No, I don't think this is entirely Reagan's fault, but he certainly supercharged it. I mean, I've routinely also criticized not just Ronald Reagan, but Carter as well. And I understand the problem is capitalism. It's just that Ronald Reagan is as close to a singular force of neoliberalism as you can get to. If your argument is that it's a far larger systemic issue than Ronald Reagan, I agree with you. I agree with you. But Ronald Reagan is as close to this issue as you can get. Is the closest responsible party as you can blame a singular person. Is Reagan America's Thatcher? Yes. Related, democracy doesn't exist in the United States. Chris Hedges.
Do that with an executive order, sir, or do you need to work with Congress?
Well, there are some people that say I could. I think I'd work with Congress. I think we'd have to work with the teachers union because the teachers union is the only one that's opposed to it. Nobody else would want to hold them back. Look, we have to tell the teachers union, we're rated last in the world in education of the top 40. We're rated last. We were 38. Now we're 40. We went to 39. We went to 40. We're 37. But we're at 40 now. The thing just came out.
I wonder why it got worse. You want your teachers to be well funded and not burdened by financial troubles, dude. You want them to have the best benefits. These are the guardians that are taking care of our children. These are the people that are shaping the next generation of Americans. They have a profoundly important job. I can't believe I have to sit here and say these things that should be the most obvious things on the planet, okay? It is alarming that I even have to make an argument for it, and yet I do consistently, and people still don't understand. They have a profoundly important duty, okay? What are we doing here? What are we doing?
Biden, remember that.
Secretary Rubio announced a deal this week that would allow potentially American citizens who are criminals to be put in a different country. Is that something you're looking to do?
No, I didn't know that he
No.
said yet, but if he did, it's fine, yeah. We have hard criminals, horrible people. You see them pushing people into subways. The train is coming last week.
In my experience, teachers just sit on their ass rather than teach effectively. It's one of the reasons for poor performance in children in school. Lack of interest comes from a lack of passion from teacher. I thought this community was older, man. I can't have this conversation with like mostly 14-year-olds. I'm sorry. It's just like, I know someone who's a cop. His dad got sick and they were deemed responsible for their dad and granted leave from the police force in order to act as a caregiver. It's been 2 years and he still gets paid. A teacher would have been fired. Yeah. Bro, you got 0.9 GPA high schoolers in your chat in general. Like there are many, I mean, judging passion is so stupid. I can't do this. Like, I don't know. I don't know what your individual experience is with your one teacher who's just not passionate. Okay. What I'm simply stating is if you want the best possible people for the job, okay, you're going to have to pay better. That's it. Everybody understands this. Everybody deep down inside understands this reality. All right. That's it. That's all I'm saying is you got to teach, you got to pay better. You got to make sure that teachers have better benefits and you will unironically have the next generation get better education overall. Okay. Not to say that like there aren't any bad teachers right now. It doesn't matter that there are bad teachers right now. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't fucking matter at all. There are people who do a bad job in every profession. Okay.
Guy walking around and just sees somebody waiting for the train. Train's coming 40 miles an hour, and he gets pushed into the subway.
Also, the other part about this like subway murder stuff is like put some gates on the subways, man. But that's socialism. That's communism, you know? Can't do that. Hey guys, we can't actually put gates on the subways. We can't do that. Something that virtually exists in every country, okay? Can't do that, okay? We have to abolish public transit instead. Public infrastructure is woke. If you want teachers to get paid better, then private education is the only option. Private education. No, I want the standard of benefits and job security to be raised. I want the standards and job security to be raised for public education to reach the level of private education. That's so stupid. You're literally not understanding the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is that we have to make sure that public education is better overall. That's the whole point. Is too much government funding? Oh my God. Taxpayers shouldn't take that burden. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, well then you'll always sit around wondering why Norway has a better educational outcome than the United States of America, okay? You'll just consistently wonder why, oh why, do these other countries have significantly better educational outcomes than the United States of America? There you go. If you're asking me why that is the case, and I'm telling you why that is the case, and I'm telling you what the solution is, and you go and say, well, the solution is too costly for the taxpayer, then okay, so you just don't have any interest in fixing it. America's like a sinking ship, and there are just too many holes to plug. And a lot of the issues actually are related to one another. A lot of issues actually contribute to the broader problem in general. You try to plug one hole, there's another hole that pops up right above it. Try to plug that, there's a third. The entire mentality behind I'm not raising my taxes, fuck you, unironically also stems from the reality that no one believes that the government is ever going to do right by them. That's it. How do you think we got there? How do you think this attitude manifested? Do you see what I'm saying? We got here because of what I was describing. We got here where there's no confidence, where there's no confidence whatsoever in the government actually doing right by the population. So it's much easier to advocate for starving it further. If you don't believe the government is actually giving you anything, and most of that money is, in your mind, I don't know, going to fucking baby murder machines and subsidizing industries that don't even actually adjust prices in times of need for you, okay? Then yeah, you're like, why am I paying taxes anyway? That's why so many Americans are anti-tax in general. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but at least in other countries, in like competent social democracies, which are also being undermined by the same the same influence of capital, the parasitic leech nature of capital owners, okay? At least they have an understanding that like, oh, well, these taxes are going to social safety nets, and I think it's valuable to pay into it because who knows what might happen to me one day. And I would rather not be like America, okay? That's the way that they, that's the way that people understand it. Hasan's tax evasion accountant, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs. Show the Carmel High video to see what could be possible. Check my log. I've been spamming it. Okay, dude. Here, my tax evasion accountant wants me to desperately watch the Carmel High video for you guys.
Welcome to Carmel High's